The blizzard came down like the wrath of God himself, and Beatrice Lawson knew she would die if she did not find shelter within the hour. The stagecoach had overturned 2 miles back when the horses panicked in the whiteout, throwing her and her traveling trunk into a snowbank, while the driver and his partner struggled to calm the terrified animals. In the chaos, Beatrice had been separated from the others, stumbling through knee-deep snow in a direction she desperately hoped led to civilization. Her fingers had gone numb inside her thin gloves, and her fashionable Boston boots, so elegant in the city, were utterly useless against the brutal Montana winter of 1882. She could barely see 3 feet ahead through the driving snow. Her lungs burned with each breath of frigid air, and her legs trembled with exhaustion. Just when she thought she might simply lie down and let the cold take her, a dark shape emerged from the white curtain ahead. A fence post, then another. Following the line of the fence with renewed hope, Beatrice pushed forward until a large barn materialized from the storm like a miracle. She half fell against the barn door, shoving it open with the last of her strength. The interior was dark and blessedly free of wind. The warmth of animal bodies filled the space, and she heard the soft sounds of horses and cattle shifting in their stalls. Beatrice collapsed onto a pile of hay, her body shaking violently from cold and exhaustion. She tried to stand, to find the house that must be nearby, but her legs refused to cooperate. The hay was soft, and despite the cold still clinging to her bones, she felt consciousness slipping away. She did not know how long she lay there before she heard the barn door open again. Heavy footsteps approached, and then a man's voice, deep and alarmed, called out, "Jesus, Mary, and Joseph." "Madam, can you hear me?" Beatrice managed to open her eyes. A tall figure stood over her, his face mostly hidden by a thick scarf and hat covered in snow. All she could see were his eyes, dark and concerned in the lamplight he held. "Cold," she managed to whisper through chattering teeth. "I have got you," he said, and then strong arms were lifting her as though she weighed nothing at all. "Hold on. House is just across the yard." The journey from barn to house was brief but brutal, the wind tearing at them both. Then they were inside, and blessed warmth enveloped her. The man set her down in a chair near a large stone fireplace where logs already crackled with heat. "Need to get you out of these wet clothes," he said, unwinding his scarf to reveal a strong-jawed face with several days' worth of dark stubble. He looked to be in his mid-20s, maybe 27 or 28, with worry lines creasing his forehead. "Can you manage on your own, or do you need help? No impropriety meant, but frostbite is serious business." "I can manage," Beatrice said, though her fingers fumbled uselessly at the buttons of her coat. They had frozen stiff, and her hands would not cooperate. Without a word, the man knelt before her and began working at the buttons himself, his movements efficient and impersonal. "Name is Owen Saddler," he said as he worked. "This is my ranch about 5 miles north of Fargo, Montana. Where did you come from?" "Beatrice Lawson," she replied, her teeth still chattering. "The stagecoach overturned. I got separated in the storm." Owen's jaw tightened. "That was you folks. Driver came through about an hour ago, said they lost a passenger but could not search in this weather. They are holed up at the Johnson place 2 miles south. I was just checking on the animals when I found you." He got her coat off and moved to her boots, which were frozen solid. As he worked them free, Beatrice studied him more carefully. He was handsome in a rugged, honest way that was completely different from the refined gentleman she knew back east. His hands were calloused and strong, his shoulders broad beneath a thick wool shirt. There was a gentleness in how he handled her frozen feet, carefully checking for signs of frostbite. "Can you feel this?" he asked, pressing lightly on her toes through her stockings. "Barely. They hurt terribly. Good. Pain means the blood is still flowing. Come on, let me get you closer to the fire. He helped her move to a thick rug directly before the hearth, then disappeared into another room. He returned with an armful of blankets and what looked like a woman's nightgown. This belonged to my sister. She moved to California last year. It will be warm and dry. I will turn my back, you get changed, then wrap up in these blankets. Understood. Beatrice nodded, and true to his word, Owen turned to face the wall. With numb, clumsy fingers, she managed to strip off her wet dress and undergarments and pull on the soft flannel nightgown. It was too large, clearly made for a taller woman, but it was blissfully dry and warm. Done, she whispered, and Owen turned back. He helped her wrap the blankets around her shoulders, then went to the kitchen area of the large open room. Beatrice heard him stoking another fire in the cooking stove and moving pots around. The main room of his home was simple but well built, with sturdy log walls and a high ceiling. A large bed sat in one corner, a table and chairs in another, and shelves lined one wall, filled with books and various implements. It was a bachelor's home, clearly, but it was clean and orderly. Through a doorway, she could see what looked like another smaller bedroom. Owen returned with a steaming mug. "Hot broth," he said, kneeling beside her again. "Drink it slow. Your body needs to warm from the inside out." The broth was rich and salty, heating her from within. As sensation returned to her extremities, the pain intensified, making her gasp. "I know it hurts," Owen said quietly. "That is a good sign, though, means nothing died. You were lucky. Another hour out there and you would have lost fingers and toes, maybe more." "I thought I was going to die," Beatrice admitted, her voice shaking. The terror of those hours in the storm came crashing back now that she was safe, and tears spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them. "I could not see anything, could not feel anything. I just kept walking because stopping meant dying." "Hey now," Owen said softly, and without hesitation, he sat beside her on the rug and pulled her against his side, blankets and all. "You are safe now. Storm like this, it will blow through by tomorrow morning. We will get word to the stage coach that you are alive, and you can continue on your way once the road's clear." "Where were you headed, Helena?" Beatrice said, wiping at her tears with a corner of the blanket. "My aunt lives there. She is opening a dress shop and asked me to come help her run it." "Long way from Boston." "How did you know I was from Boston?" The corner of Owen's mouth lifted in an almost smile. "The way you talk, and those city boots. Nobody from out here would try to travel in winter in footwear like that." Despite everything, Beatrice found herself smiling slightly. "I suppose I was rather unprepared for Montana. Montana has a way of teaching lessons fast. You learned you need better boots. Could have been worse lessons." His arm around her shoulders was warm and solid, and Beatrice found herself leaning into his strength. She should have felt improper, sitting in a strange man's home in nothing but a nightgown and blankets pressed against his side. But the terror of her near death had stripped away such concerns. Right now, she was simply grateful to be alive and warm. Outside, the wind howled and snow battered the windows. Inside, the fire crackled cheerfully, and gradually, Beatrice's shivering subsided. She became aware of the steady rhythm of Owen's breathing, the faint scent of hay and leather that clung to him, the strength in the arm that held her steady. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for saving my life." "Could not very well let you freeze in my barn," Owen replied, but his voice was kind. "Though I will say you gave me a hell of a scare. Thought you were dead when I first saw you lying there. I felt nearly dead. Well, you are not. You are here and you are going to be fine." He shifted slightly, reaching for the broth mug. "Drink more. You need it." Beatrice obeyed, draining the last of the warm liquid. Her eyelids felt heavy exhaustion pulling at her now that the immediate danger had passed. "You should sleep," Owen said. "Take the bed. I will bunk down out here by the fire." "I cannot take your bed." "You can and you will. You have been through hell today. Take the comfort where you can get it." He stood, helping her to her feet. Her legs wobbled, and he steadied her with a hand on her elbow. "Easy now." He guided her to the large bed in the corner, pulling back thick quilts. "Pile on as many blankets as you need. If you get cold in the night, call out. I will build up the fire." Beatrice climbed into the bed, which was surprisingly comfortable. The mattress was thick, the quilts heavy and warm. "What about you?" "I have slept by the fire plenty of times. One more night would not hurt me." Owen pulled the quilts up around her shoulders. "Sleep now, Miss Lawson. Morning will bring clearer skies." Too exhausted to argue further, Beatrice let her eyes close. She heard Owen moving around the room, banking the cooking fire and adding another log to the hearth. The bed smelled faintly of pine and something else, something masculine and not unpleasant. As she drifted towards sleep, her last conscious thought was that she had never felt quite so safe as she did in this rough-hewn house with a cowboy she had just met standing guard. When Beatrice woke, sunlight was streaming through the windows, bright and almost blinding on the snow outside. For a moment she was disoriented, unable to remember where she was. Then it all came back. The storm, the cold, Owen Saddler finding her in his barn. She sat up, looking around. Owen was at the stove, his back to her, doing something that smelled absolutely delicious. He had changed clothes, now wearing clean denim pants and a blue flannel shirt. His dark hair was damp, as though he had washed recently. "Good morning," she said, her voice rough from sleep. Owen turned, a spatula in hand. "Good morning. How do you feel?" Beatrice took stock of herself. Her fingers and toes ached, but in a dull way that suggested healing rather than damage. Her body was exhausted but no longer trembling. "Better, much better." "Good. I have eggs and bacon cooking and coffee is ready. You should eat." He turned back to the stove, flipping something in a pan. "Storm passed just after dawn. I already rode out to the Johnson place and let them know you are alive. The stage coach will continue to Helena once they can dig out the road, but that might take a few days. You are welcome to stay here until then." Beatrice's stomach growled at the smell of food, reminding her that she had not eaten since a brief stop in Virginia City the previous morning. "That is very kind of you. Got plenty of room and plenty of food. No sense in you trying to walk to town in this snow." He plated up eggs and bacon, bringing it to the table along with a cup of coffee. "Come on, eat while it is hot." Realizing she was still in his sister's nightgown and wrapped in blankets, Beatrice hesitated. Owen seemed to read her thoughts. "Your dress is drying by the fire. Probably needs another few hours. For now, just wrap up in that blanket and come eat. We are past worrying about propriety, I figure." He was right, of course. Beatrice wrapped the blanket around herself like a shawl and made her way to the table. The food was simple but delicious, the eggs perfectly cooked and the bacon crispy. She ate ravenously, not caring how unladylike her appetite might seem. Owen sat across from her with his own plate. "So, a dress shop in Helena," he said. "You are a seamstress." "I am. I have been sewing since I was a girl. My aunt married a prospector who struck gold, and now she has the means to open a proper shop. She needs someone she can trust to help run it. Big change from Boston." "Everything in my life has been changing," Beatrice said, then wondered why she was being so honest with this stranger. But something about Owen invited confidence. Maybe it was the calm, steady way he watched her, or the kindness in his dark eyes. "My father passed away last year. My mother died when I was young. I have no siblings. My aunt's offer came at the right time. I am sorry about your father," Owen said simply. "Losing family is never easy." "Did you lose someone?" The question came out before Beatrice could stop it, prompted by something in his tone. Owen nodded slowly. "My parents, 3 years back. Influenza took them both within a week of each other. My sister Sarah could not handle the grief, so she moved to California to live with our mother's cousin. I stayed. This ranch was my father's dream, seemed wrong to abandon it." "So you run it alone?" "I have 2 hired hands who live in the bunkhouse out back, but they are visiting family in Bozeman this week. Mostly, yes, I run it alone. It is a lot of work, but it is mine. There is freedom in that." Beatrice understood more than he might have guessed. "Freedom is why I came west, too. In Boston, as an unmarried woman with no family, my options were limited. Work as a seamstress in a factory or perhaps as a governess. Neither appealed. Out here with my aunt I can build something, have a real stake in a business." "Good for you," Owen said, and he sounded like he meant it. "Takes courage to start over somewhere new." They finished breakfast in comfortable silence. Afterward, Owen insisted on checking her hands and feet again for signs of frostbite. He was gentle and professional, his touch impersonal as he examined her toes and fingers. "You got lucky," he pronounced. "No permanent damage that I can see. Your fingers and toes will be tender for a while, but they will heal. Keep them warm and you should be fine." "Thanks to you," Beatrice said. "If you had not found me when you did. But I did find you, so there is no point in thinking about the alternative." Owen stood, moving to the window. "Snow has stopped, but we got about 2 feet overnight on top of what was already on the ground. Travel will be difficult for a few days. You truly are welcome to stay here until the roads clear. I promise to be a perfect gentleman." "You have already proven that," Beatrice said. "If the offer stands, I would be grateful to accept. I confess I am not eager to venture out into the snow again so soon." "Then it is settled. Let me show you around properly now that you are not half frozen." Owen gave her that slight, almost smile again. "Fair warning, it is not fancy, just a working ranch, but it is home." Over the next hour, Owen gave her a tour of the property. He lent her a pair of his sister's old boots, which fit reasonably well, and a thick coat. Outside, the world was a pristine white wonderland, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Beatrice could hardly believe she had been stumbling through this landscape yesterday, unable to see, unable to feel. The ranch consisted of the main house, a large barn, a smaller bunkhouse for the hired hands, and several outbuildings for equipment and supplies. Owen kept cattle and horses, breeding both for sale. He showed her the animals with obvious pride, pointing out a mare he had trained himself and a bull that had come from fine stock in Texas. "This is a good life," he said as they stood in the barn, watching the horses munch hay. "Hard work, but honest. I wake up every morning knowing what needs to be done. No politics, no games, just me and the land and the animals." "It sounds lonely," Beatrice observed. Owen was quiet for a moment. "It is sometimes," he admitted. "After Sarah left, the quiet got heavy. But I have my hands, Joe and Thomas. Good men. We play cards on Saturday nights, share meals, and I go into town for supplies every few weeks, see people then. It is enough." But Beatrice heard something in his voice that suggested it was not quite enough, not really. She understood that feeling. In Boston, she had been surrounded by people but utterly alone after her father's death. The city had felt cold and empty, every face a stranger's. At least Owen had his land, his purpose. They returned to the house as the afternoon sun began to dip toward the horizon. Owen showed Beatrice where things were kept, making it clear she should help herself to anything she needed. Her dress was finally dry, and she changed back into it, grateful to be in her own clothes again, even though the fabric was not as warm as the nightgown had been. That evening, Owen cooked again, making a hearty stew with beef and vegetables from his root cellar. Beatrice insisted on helping, and they worked together in the kitchen, an easy rhythm developing between them. He chopped vegetables while she stirred the pot. She set the table while he sliced bread. "You are a good cook," Beatrice said as they ate. The stew was rich and flavorful, warming her from the inside out. "Had to learn after my mother passed. Could not live on burned beans and jerky forever." Owen broke off a piece of bread. "What about you? Do you cook?" "I do, though I am better with a needle than a pot. My father and I lived simply. I made what we needed, nothing fancy. This must all be very different from Boston." "Everything is different," Beatrice agreed. "The space, the quiet, the snow, even the light looks different here. But I find I like it. There is something honest about this place, like you said. It feels real in a way the city never did." Owen looked at her across the table, something warm in his eyes. "I am glad you feel that way. Some folks come out west and hate every minute of it. They miss the conveniences, the society. Montana is not for everyone. Perhaps I am discovering that I am not like everyone." "Perhaps not," Owen said softly, and the way he looked at her made Beatrice's heart skip in an unfamiliar way. After dinner, they sat by the fire. Owen pulled out a chessboard, asking if she played. She did, and they spent the evening in quiet competition, the only sounds the crackle of the fire and the click of wooden pieces on the board. Owen won the first game, but Beatrice took the second, much to his surprise. "You are full of surprises, Miss Lawson," he said, studying the board where she had trapped his king. "As are you, Mr. Saddler. Call me Owen. We are past formality, I think. Then you should call me Beatrice." "Beatrice," he repeated, and she liked the way her name sounded in his deep voice. "It suits you. It is a strong name." "I do not feel particularly strong. Yesterday I was terrified." "Being scared does not mean you are not strong. You kept walking when you could have given up. You survived. That takes strength." Owen started resetting the chess pieces. Another round. They played late into the night, talking between moves. Owen told her about growing up on the ranch, about learning to ride before he could properly walk, about the hard work of building something from nothing. Beatrice told him about Boston, about her father's bookshop, about learning to sew from her mother's old dresses after she died. She told him things she had never told anyone, about the loneliness, about feeling like she was just passing through life rather than living it. "And now?" Owen asked. "Do you still feel that way?" Beatrice considered the question. "No," she said slowly. "Right now, in this moment, I feel alive, truly alive. Maybe it is the brush with death yesterday, or maybe it is something else, but I feel present in a way I have not in years." Owen reached across the table, his hand covering hers. "I am glad you are here, Beatrice. I know the circumstances were terrible, but I am glad." His hand was warm and rough, the hand of a man who worked hard for his living. Beatrice turned her palm up, lacing her fingers through his. "So am I." They sat like that for a long moment, hands clasped across the chessboard, the fire burning low. Then Owen cleared his throat and stood, gently releasing her hand. "It is late. You should rest. Tomorrow, if the weather holds, maybe I can show you more of the property. There is a beautiful view from the ridge if you are up for a ride." "I would like that," Beatrice said, "though I should confess I have never been on a horse." Owen's eyes widened. "Never, never. There was not much call for riding in Boston." "Well then, tomorrow you will learn. I have a gentle mare that would be perfect for a beginner." He banked the fire, ensuring it would burn safely through the night. "You take the bed again. I am comfortable out here." Beatrice wanted to argue, but exhaustion was pulling at her again. "Tomorrow, we take turns. I cannot keep stealing your bed." "We will see," Owen said, which was not agreement but was not refusal either. As Beatrice settled into the bed for the second night, she found herself thinking about Owen's hand covering hers, the warmth in his eyes when he looked at her, the easy way they had talked. She barely knew this man, yet she felt more comfortable with him than she had with people she had known for years. There was something about Owen Saddler that called to something deep inside her, something she had not known was there until now. The next morning dawned clear and cold. Beatrice woke to find Owen already up, cooking breakfast. She joined him and they ate together as the sun rose higher, painting the snow-covered landscape gold and pink. After breakfast, Owen took her out to the barn. He introduced her to Rosie, a sweet-faced sorrel mare with gentle eyes. She is older, but she is patient and calm. Perfect for learning on, Owen said, stroking the mare's neck. First thing you need to learn is how to approach a horse, how to let her know you are friendly. He guided Beatrice through the basics, showing her how to speak softly, how to move slowly and confidently. Rosie sniffed Beatrice's offered hand and nickered softly, seeming to approve. Good. Now let me show you how to saddle her. Owen was a patient teacher, explaining each step clearly and demonstrating before having Beatrice try. He showed her how to place the blanket, how to lift the saddle and settle it properly, how to secure the cinch without making it too tight or too loose. His hands covered hers as he guided her through the motions, his body warm at her back as he reached around to help her. Beatrice found her concentration wavering, too aware of his nearness, the strength in his arms, the scent of soap and leather. She fumbled with the cinch, and Owen's hands closed over hers again, steadying her. Like this, he said softly, his breath warm against her ear. Firm but not harsh. You want her comfortable. Beatrice's heart was racing, and it had nothing to do with the horse. When Owen stepped back, she felt the loss of his warmth like a physical thing. Good job, Owen said. Now mounting. Come here. He showed her how to put her foot in the stirrup, how to grab the horn and pull herself up. It took 3 tries, but finally, Beatrice found herself sitting in the saddle, the ground suddenly much farther away than she expected. Oh, she said, gripping the horn tightly. This is higher than I thought. You are doing fine, Owen said, his hand on her knee steadying her. Just relax. Rosie can feel your tension. Breathe. Beatrice took a deep breath, then another. Gradually, she felt her body relaxing into the saddle. Rosie shifted her weight, and Beatrice moved with her, starting to feel the rhythm. There you go, Owen said, approval in his voice. You are a natural. He led Rosie out of the barn and into the yard, holding the reins and walking beside them. He showed Beatrice how to hold the reins, how to use her legs to communicate with the horse, how to sit deep and balanced. After a while, Owen mounted his own horse, a tall black gelding named Midnight, and they rode together across the snow-covered fields. The going was slow, the horses pushing through the deep snow, but the day was clear and the views were spectacular. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks sharp against the blue sky. The ranch spread out below them, small and neat, smoke rising from the chimney. It is beautiful, Beatrice said, awed by the vastness of it all. In Boston, she had been surrounded by buildings and people, everything close and cramped. Out here, the world seemed endless. It is home, Owen said simply, but she could hear the love in his voice. They rode for about an hour before turning back, Beatrice's legs starting to ache from the unfamiliar position. Owen helped her dismount, his hands steady on her waist as she slid down. Her legs wobbled and she stumbled slightly. Owen caught her, his arms going around her to keep her upright. Easy, he said. Your muscles are not used to riding, you will be sore tomorrow. They stood there for a moment, Beatrice's hands on his shoulders, his arms around her waist. The moment stretched, neither of them moving. Owen's eyes were dark and warm, fixed on her face. Beatrice's breath caught as he leaned slightly closer, his gaze dropping to her lips. Then Rosie nickered loudly, breaking the spell. Owen stepped back, clearing his throat. "Let me unsaddle the horses," he said, his voice rough. "You should go inside, warm up." Beatrice nodded, not trusting her voice. Her heart was pounding again, and her hands were shaking as she walked back to the house. What was happening to her? She had known this man for 2 days. 2 days. Yet she felt drawn to him in a way she had never experienced before. Inside, she tried to busy herself making lunch, but her mind kept drifting to the moment in the barn, the feel of Owen's arms around her, the way he had looked at her. Had he wanted to kiss her? Had she wanted him to? Yes, she admitted to herself. She had wanted him to kiss her. When Owen came inside, stamping snow from his boots, they both seemed uncertain, the easy comfort of the previous days replaced by an awareness of each other that crackled in the air between them. "Lunch smells good," Owen said, hanging up his coat. "Just soup. I hope that is all right." More than all right. They ate in near silence, the only sounds the clink of spoons against bowls. Afterward, Owen excused himself to do work around the ranch, and Beatrice was left alone in the house. She found a basket of mending and spent the afternoon with needle and thread, her hands grateful for the familiar work. But her mind would not settle, replaying every moment with Owen, every look, every touch. That evening, when Owen returned, the awkwardness between them had only grown. They prepared dinner together, moving carefully around each other, both hyper-aware of any accidental brush of hands or arms. The tension built until Beatrice could not stand it anymore. "Owen," she said as they sat down to eat. "Did I do something wrong?" He looked up sharply. "What? No." "Why would you think that? You have been distant all day. If I overstepped in some way, I apologize." Owen set down his fork, running a hand through his hair. "You did not overstep. I did, or almost did. In the barn, I almost." He trailed off, looking uncomfortable. "You are a guest in my home." "I should not have presumed. It was not gentlemanly." Relief flooded through Beatrice, followed by a rush of courage she had not known she possessed. "What if I wanted you to presume?" Owen's head snapped up, his eyes meeting hers. "Beatrice, I am not playing games, Owen. I do not know what is happening between us. I only know that I have never felt this way before. I have known you for 2 days, which is madness, but I cannot stop thinking about you, about the way you look at me, the way I feel when you are near." "I feel it too," Owen said, his voice low and intense. "From the moment I carried you into this house, I have felt it. You are brave and strong and beautiful, and when you leave, I am going to spend the rest of my life regretting that I did not tell you so." Beatrice stood, her chair scraping against the floor. She walked around the table to where Owen sat. He looked up at her, something raw and hopeful in his face. She cupped his cheek in her hand, and he leaned into her touch. "Then tell me now," she whispered, "while I am still here." Owen stood, his hands coming up to frame her face. "You are the most extraordinary woman I have ever met. In 2 days, you have turned my whole world upside down. I know it is too fast, too soon. But I am falling in love with you, Beatrice Lawson. God help me, I am falling hard." "Oh, thank goodness," Beatrice said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Because I am falling in love with you too." Owen kissed her then, and it was everything Beatrice had never known to want. His lips were warm and firm, his hands gentle on her face. She kissed him back with all the longing that had been building since that moment in the barn, since before that, since he had carried her into his home and saved her life. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Owen rested his forehead against hers. "What are we going to do?" He asked quietly. "You are supposed to go to Helena. Your aunt is expecting you." "I know," Beatrice said, but the thought of leaving made her chest ache. "I gave her my word. I cannot simply abandon her." "No, you cannot," Owen agreed. "You are too honorable for that. He pulled back slightly, looking into her eyes. "But when you are settled in Helena, could I come visit you, court you properly?" "Yes," Beatrice said immediately. "Yes, please." "Then we will make this work," Owen said firmly. "Helena is not so far. I can ride there once a month at least. We will write letters, and when enough time has passed, when we are sure this is real, we will figure out the rest." "It feels real now," Beatrice said. "I know, but we should be smart about this. Take our time, do this right." Owen smiled, the first full smile she had seen from him, and it transformed his face, making him look younger and happier. "Though I am not sure how I am supposed to take my time when all I want to do is kiss you again." "I would not object to more kissing," Beatrice said shyly. Owen laughed, a warm, rich sound, and pulled her close again. They spent the evening curled up together by the fire, talking and kissing and making plans. Owen told her about Helena, which he knew reasonably well from supply runs. He told her where the best shops were, which boarding houses were respectable, how to navigate the rough mining town. Beatrice told him about her aunt's plans for the dress shop, about her hopes of making fine gowns for the wives of the newly wealthy prospectors. "You will do well there," Owen said. "You have the skill and the drive, and when you have established yourself, built your reputation, then maybe—" He paused, seeming uncertain for the first time. "Then maybe you could consider a different future, here, with me, if you wanted." "Are you asking me to marry you, Owen Saddler?" "Not yet, not properly, not until we have had time to be sure. But yes, Beatrice, I am saying that is what I want, what I hope for, a future with you." Beatrice's eyes filled with tears. "I want that too, more than I have ever wanted anything." They sealed the promise with another kiss, and then another, losing themselves in the warmth of new love and infinite possibility. 3 days later, the road to Fargo was finally clear enough for travel. Owen drove Beatrice into town in his wagon, the ride taking nearly 2 hours through the snow. They sat close together on the bench, hands clasped, neither wanting the moment to end. In Fargo, they found that the stagecoach had already departed for Helena the previous day, but another would come through in 2 days. Owen arranged for Beatrice to stay at a respectable boarding house run by a kind widow named Mrs. Harriet Templeton. Then, knowing they had a little more time, he showed her around the small town. Fargo, Montana was not much to look at, just a handful of buildings clustered along the main road, but it had a certain frontier charm. There was a general store, a saloon, a church, and a handful of houses. Everyone seemed to know Owen, and he introduced Beatrice as a friend, saying she had gotten stranded in the storm. People were kind, welcoming her warmly and offering their own stories of close calls in Montana winters. That night, Owen took Beatrice to dinner at the town's only restaurant, a small place attached to the boarding house. They ate roast chicken and potatoes, barely tasting the food, too focused on each other. Afterward, Owen walked her back to her room. At the door, he kissed her good night, a sweet, lingering kiss that promised everything. 2 days, he said against her lips. Then you will be gone. 2 days, Beatrice agreed. And then letters and visits. We will make this work, Owen. Yes, we will. The next day, Owen took her riding again, this time into the mountains. They packed a lunch and spent the day exploring, riding through forests of pine and across frozen streams. They talked about everything and nothing, learning each other's stories, each other's hearts. That night, they returned to the ranch one last time, and Beatrice cooked dinner while Owen did evening chores. It felt domestic and right, like a glimpse of a possible future. "I could get used to this," Beatrice said as they sat down to eat. "Coming home to you every day. Sharing meals and stories, building a life together." "You will have it," Owen promised. "I swear to you, Beatrice, this is not goodbye, this is just the beginning." The morning of the stagecoach's departure came too quickly. Owen drove Beatrice back to Fargo, and they waited together outside the boarding house for the stage to arrive. When it finally came rumbling up the street, Beatrice felt her throat tighten with tears. "I do not want to go," she admitted. "I do not want you to go either," Owen said. "But you must. Your aunt needs you and you need to build your life. I will be here waiting, and I will come to Helena as soon as I can. A month, maybe 2 at the most, I promise. I will write every week, and I will write back." The driver called for passengers to board. Owen pulled Beatrice into a tight embrace, holding her as though he could keep her there through will alone. Then he kissed her, deep and passionate, right there in the middle of the street, not caring who saw. "I love you, Beatrice Lawson," he said when they broke apart. "I love you, Owen Saddler." She climbed into the stagecoach, settling into her seat. Through the window, she watched Owen standing in the street, his hand raised in farewell. The coach lurched into motion, and Beatrice watched until Owen was just a speck in the distance, then until Fargo itself disappeared behind the hills. She sat back in her seat, her heart aching but also full. She was leaving, yes, but she was not saying goodbye forever. She had found something precious in that ranch house during the storm, something worth holding on to. And she would hold on, she promised herself, no matter what came next. Helena, Montana turned out to be everything Beatrice had hoped and nothing like she expected. The town was larger than Fargo, bustling with prospectors and merchants, saloon girls and businessmen. Gold and silver flowed through the streets, making men rich overnight and poor just as quickly. It was loud and rough and full of opportunity. Her aunt, Clara Landry, met her at the stage depot. She was a handsome woman in her early 40s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She had married her prospector husband 15 years earlier and followed him west, despite her family's objections. Now he was dead, killed in a mining accident 2 years back, and she had finally struck gold on a claim he had left her. Rather than remarry, she had decided to invest her money in a business she could control. "You look different," Clara said, studying Beatrice as they walked to her small house on the edge of town. "Something happened on your journey." Beatrice felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I got caught in a storm. A rancher named Owen Saddler saved me. I stayed at his ranch for several days until the roads cleared." Clara's eyes sharpened. "Just you and this rancher?" "Yes," Beatrice admitted. "His hired hands were away. It was all perfectly proper," she added quickly, which was mostly true. "He was a perfect gentleman." Clara said, but she was smiling slightly. "And this gentleman, is he why you are glowing like a woman in love?" Beatrice could not help but smile. "Perhaps." "Well then," Clara said, "you will have to tell me all about him, but first, let me show you the shop." The shop was a small building on a busy street, with large windows and a good location. Inside, it was empty except for a few bolts of fabric and a sewing table. But Beatrice could see the potential immediately. With the right setup, the right marketing, they could make this a success. Over the next weeks, Beatrice threw herself into the work. She and Clara cleaned and painted, built shelves and display areas. They ordered fabric and notions from San Francisco, buttons and lace and thread in every color. Beatrice designed dresses, elegant gowns that would appeal to the wives of newly wealthy miners. Clara handled the business side, negotiating prices and charming customers. The shop opened in late February, and within days, they had their first orders. Word spread quickly about the skilled seamstress from Boston who could create gowns as fine as anything from Paris. Soon, Beatrice was working from dawn to well past dark, her fingers flying over fabric, creating beauty from cloth and thread. But no matter how busy she was, she never forgot to write to Owen. Every Sunday, she sat down and penned a long letter, telling him about her week, about the shop, about Helena. And every week, a letter came back, Owen's bold handwriting filling the pages with news from the ranch, declarations of love, and plans for when they would see each other again. 6 weeks after leaving Fargo, Beatrice looked up from her sewing to see Owen standing in the doorway of the shop. She dropped the dress she was working on and ran to him, not caring that several customers were watching. He caught her in his arms and spun her around, both of them laughing. "You came," she said, breathless. "I promised, did I not?" Owen set her down but did not release her, his eyes drinking in the sight of her. "You look beautiful and tired. You are working too hard." "There is so much to do, but I am happy, Owen. The shop is doing well, better than we hoped. I am glad." He looked around the shop, taking in the elegant gowns on display, the busy workroom in the back where 2 assistants Clara had hired were sewing. "You have built something impressive here." Clara came out from the back, her eyebrows raised. "You must be the rancher." "Owen Saddler, madam," Owen said, offering his hand. "Pleased to meet you." Clara shook his hand firmly, studying him with the same sharp gaze she turned on fabric and customers. Whatever she saw seemed to satisfy her because she smiled. "Beatrice has told me about you. You can take her to dinner tonight. She has been working too hard, but have her back at a reasonable hour. We have a fitting in the morning." "Yes, madam," Owen said, grinning. That evening, Owen took Beatrice to the finest restaurant in Helena, a place with white tablecloths and real china. Over steak and wine, they caught up on everything the letters had not covered. Owen told her about the ranch, about the new foal born just last week, about his hired hands returning and teasing him mercilessly about being lovesick. "Because I am lovesick," he admitted. "I have been miserable without you, Beatrice. The house feels empty, everything feels empty." "I have missed you terribly," Beatrice said. "But this—" She gestured around them, meaning the shop, the town, the life she was building. "This is good too. I am proud of what we have created. For the first time in my life, I feel like I am building something of my own. I understand, and I would never ask you to give that up." Owen reached across the table, taking her hand. "But I need you to know, Beatrice, my feelings have not changed. If anything, they have only grown stronger. I want to marry you, I want you to be my wife, but I know you need time. I am willing to wait as long as it takes." Beatrice's heart swelled. "I want that too, Owen. I want to be your wife, but I need to make sure the shop is stable first. Clara depends on me, and I gave her my word. Can you wait? A few more months at least." "I will wait forever if I have to," Owen said simply. "But I am hoping it will not take that long." He stayed in Helena for 3 days, taking Beatrice to dinner each evening and spending the days exploring the town. On the last night, he kissed her goodbye under the stars, holding her close. "I will come back next month," he promised, "and the month after that, as many times as it takes until you are ready to come home with me." "Home," Beatrice repeated, the word tasting sweet on her tongue. "Yes. Soon, my love. Soon." True to his word, Owen came to Helena every month. Sometimes he stayed for 3 days, sometimes for a week. He always brought gifts, small things like wild flowers or a carved wooden box he had made himself. He met Beatrice's friends, became known around town as the rancher who was courting the pretty seamstress. People liked him, respected his work ethic and his obvious devotion to Beatrice. In May, disaster struck. A fire broke out in the building next to the shop, and before it could be contained, the flames spread. The shop burned, along with half the block. Beatrice and Clara stood in the street, watching everything they had built go up in smoke. "All that work," Clara said, her voice hollow. "All that money, gone." Beatrice put her arm around her aunt, feeling numb. Weeks of labor, thousands of dollars in fabric and supplies, all destroyed. But then she thought of Owen, of nearly freezing to death in the storm, of how much worse things could be. "We are alive," she said firmly. "We can rebuild." "With what money?" Clara asked. "The insurance will not cover everything, and it will take months to get restarted. Then we will find a way. We did it once. We can do it again." News of the fire reached Fargo within days, and Owen came immediately. He arrived to find Beatrice exhausted but determined, already making plans to rebuild. "I have money saved," Owen said immediately. "Let me help. I can invest in the shop, become a partner. That way you will have the funds to rebuild quickly." "Owen, I cannot ask you to do that," Beatrice protested. "You are not asking, I am offering. Let me do this, Beatrice. Let me help you save what you have built." Clara, who had been listening from across the room, spoke up. "I think you should accept, Beatrice. It is a good offer. Fair terms, equal partnership, and it would solve our immediate problems." Beatrice looked between her aunt and the man she loved. "All right," she said finally, "but only if we draw up proper papers. I want this to be a legitimate business arrangement." Owen smiled. "Done. I will ride to Fargo tomorrow and arrange for the money to be transferred." With Owen's investment, the shop was rebuilt by July, better than before, with improved fire safety and more space. Business picked up quickly, and soon they were busier than ever. Owen began spending more time in Helena, helping with the business side of things. He had a head for numbers and negotiations, complementing Clara's marketing skills and Beatrice's design talent perfectly. By September, the shop was thriving. They had hired 4 seamstresses and were looking at opening a second location. Beatrice was exhausted but happy, proud of what they had accomplished. But she also found herself thinking more and more about the ranch, about the quiet peace of those days she had spent there during the storm. One evening in late September, as she and Owen walked along the edge of town, she finally said what had been building in her heart. "I think I am ready." Owen stopped walking, turning to face her. "Ready to marry you, to move to the ranch. The shop is stable now. Clara has hired a manager who can handle the day-to-day operations. I will still design, but I do not need to be here every day anymore. So yes, Owen, I am ready to come home with you." Owen's face lit up like the sun breaking through clouds. "Are you certain?" "I do not want you to give up something important to you." "I am not giving up anything. I am choosing something better. I am choosing us, choosing our life together. The shop will always be part of my life, but it does not have to be my whole life." Owen pulled her into his arms, kissing her deeply. When they broke apart, both were laughing, almost dizzy with joy. "When?" Owen asked. "How soon can we marry?" "As soon as we can arrange it. A small wedding, just family and close friends. Then I want to go home to the ranch. Our ranch. I want to start our life together." They were married 3 weeks later in the small church in Helena. Clara stood up for Beatrice, and Joe, one of Owen's ranch hands, served as his witness. The ceremony was simple, the vows traditional. But when Owen slipped a gold band onto Beatrice's finger and kissed her as his wife, Beatrice felt as though her heart might burst with happiness. The wedding dinner was held at the restaurant where Owen had first taken her to dinner, with a small group of friends. Clara gave a toast that made Beatrice cry, thanking her for her hard work and wishing her every happiness. Owen's hired hands, Joe and Thomas, got pleasantly drunk and told embarrassing stories about Owen that made everyone laugh. As the evening wound down, Owen leaned close to Beatrice and whispered, "Ready to go home, Mrs. Saddler?" "Yes," she said, the name sending a thrill through her. Mrs. Saddler. She was Owen's wife now, truly and completely. "Let us go home." They left Helena the next morning, traveling by wagon with Beatrice's belongings. The journey took 2 days, stopping overnight at a way station. On the second afternoon, they crested a hill, and the ranch spread out below them. Smoke rose from the chimney of the house, and cattle dotted the fields. Beatrice felt something settle in her chest, a sense of rightness, of belonging. "Welcome home," Owen said softly. The first weeks of married life were an adjustment. Beatrice had to learn the rhythms of ranch life, the early mornings and hard work. She learned to cook for hungry ranch hands, to tend the vegetable garden, to help with smaller tasks around the ranch. Owen was patient, showing her everything with the same care he had shown when teaching her to ride. But at night, when the work was done and they were alone in their bedroom, everything was perfect. They learned each other's bodies, the joy of physical intimacy deepening the love they already shared. Owen was gentle and passionate, and Beatrice discovered parts of herself she had never known existed. Winter came early that year, bringing the first snow in October. As Beatrice watched the white flakes fall, she remembered that terrible storm nearly a year ago. So much had changed since then. She had been running from loneliness and loss, uncertain of her future. Now she stood in a home she loved, married to a man she adored, building a life that felt meaningful and real. "Thinking about something?" Owen asked, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. Beatrice leaned back against him. "Just remembering how we met, that storm, how terrified I was." "That storm brought me the greatest gift of my life," Owen said, pressing a kiss to her neck. "It brought me you. It brought us each other," Beatrice corrected. "I found more than shelter that night, Owen. I found home." The years that followed were not always easy, but they were good. The ranch prospered under Owen's careful management and Beatrice's organizational skills. They added new buildings, increased their herds, hired more hands. Beatrice continued to design dresses, sending her sketches to Clara, and occasionally traveling to Helena to oversee major projects. But her heart was always at the ranch, with Owen. In the spring of 1884, Beatrice discovered she was pregnant. The news filled Owen with such joy that he swept her up and spun her around, despite her laughing protests. "We are going to be parents," he said wonderingly. "You are going to be a mother. I am going to be a father." "Yes," Beatrice said, happiness radiating through her. "We are." Their son was born in early November, a healthy baby with dark hair and his father's eyes. They named him James Owen Saddler after both their fathers. Owen cried when he held his son for the first time, overwhelmed with emotion. "Thank you," he said to Beatrice, his voice thick. "Thank you for this, for him, for everything." "We made him together," Beatrice said softly. "Our family, Owen. This is our family." James was followed by a daughter, Margaret Clara, 2 years later, and then another son, Daniel, 2 years after that. The house that had seemed so large and empty when Beatrice first arrived filled with the sounds of children laughing, crying, playing. Owen proved to be a wonderful father, patient and loving, teaching his children to ride and rope and respect the land. Beatrice taught them to read and write, to sew and cook and think independently. She told them stories of their grandparents, keeping family memories alive. And she told them the story of how she and Owen met, about the storm and the barn and the fire that saved her life. "You built a fire and I built a home," she told Owen one night as they sat on the porch, watching the sun set over the mountains. The children were asleep inside, the house quiet for once. "That is what really happened, is it not? You gave me warmth and safety, and I turned that into a home, a life." Owen took her hand, lacing their fingers together. "We built it together, Beatrice. Everything we have we built together. The ranch, our family, this life. It is all ours, made from love and work and determination." Beatrice rested her head on his shoulder, contentment settling over her like a warm blanket. "I used to think love meant giving up pieces of yourself, sacrificing your dreams for someone else. But that is not what love is at all. "What is it then?" Owen asked, though he knew the answer. "Love is building something new together. It is not giving up who you are. It is becoming more than you were because you have someone to share it with." Beatrice lifted her head, looking into Owen's eyes. "You made me more than I was, Owen. You helped me become who I was always meant to be." "As you did for me," Owen said. "Before you, I was just going through the motions, working, surviving, but not really living. You brought light into my life, Beatrice, color and joy and purpose." They kissed, sweet and familiar. The kiss of two people who had chosen each other every day for years and would continue choosing each other for all the years to come. As the seasons passed, the Saddler family became a fixture in the Fargo community. Owen served on the town council, helping to guide the small town's growth. Beatrice worked with other ranch wives to establish a school, ensuring their children had proper education. They held gatherings at the ranch, welcoming neighbors and friends, building connections that would last generations. Joe and Thomas both married and started families of their own, building houses on the ranch property. The land that had once belonged to just Owen became a small community, several families working together, supporting each other. James, as he grew, showed his father's love of ranching, spending every free moment working with the animals. Margaret inherited her mother's eye for beauty and design, constantly creating things with fabric and thread. Daniel, the youngest, was quiet and bookish, preferring to lose himself in stories. "They are all so different," Beatrice said to Owen one evening as they watched their children play. James was teaching Margaret to rope a fence post while Daniel sat under a tree with a book. "Good," Owen said. "They should be their own people, not copies of us. We will love them for who they are and help them become who they are meant to be." In the summer of 1892, Clara came to visit, bringing her new husband, a kind merchant from San Francisco. She was older now, gray streaking her hair but still sharp and vital. She walked through the ranch with Beatrice, admiring everything her niece had built. "You chose well," Clara said as they stood on the ridge overlooking the valley. "When you told me about Owen, I worried. I thought maybe you were running from one thing to another, not thinking clearly, but I was wrong. This is where you belong." "I know," Beatrice said simply. "I have never doubted it. This is home." "The shop misses you, though. Your designs are still our most popular." Beatrice smiled. "I miss it sometimes, too. The buzz of the city, the satisfaction of creating something beautiful, but I can do that here, too. And what I have here, what Owen and I built together, that is worth more than any business success." Clara hugged her niece. "You have done well, Beatrice. Your mother would be so proud. And your father, too." Years continued to pass, marked by seasons and harvests, by children growing and new grandchildren being born. James married a school teacher from town and took over more of the ranch operations. Margaret moved to Helena to work in the dress shop, eventually buying out the business when Clara retired. Daniel surprised everyone by becoming a lawyer, moving to Butte to practice. Through it all, Owen and Beatrice remained at the heart of the ranch, the center around which everything else revolved. They were partners in every sense, working together, making decisions together, facing challenges together. When drought struck one summer, threatening the cattle, they worked side by side to dig new wells and manage resources carefully. When James's wife had trouble with her first pregnancy, Beatrice was there, providing comfort and care. On their 20th wedding anniversary, Owen surprised Beatrice with a trip back to Boston. She had not been back since leaving for Montana, and the city had changed dramatically. It seemed smaller somehow, more crowded and less intimidating than she remembered. They visited her father's old bookshop, now owned by someone else but still standing. Beatrice traced her fingers over the doorframe, remembering the girl she had been, lonely and lost, searching for purpose. "You regret it?" Owen asked. "Leaving everything you knew?" "Not for a single moment," Beatrice said. "I left behind a half-life. You gave me a whole one." They spent a week in Boston, visiting museums and restaurants, enjoying the culture and refinement. But by the end of the week, both were eager to return home. Montana called to them, the wide open spaces and clean air, the ranch and family waiting for them. The train ride back seemed to take forever, both of them impatient to be home. When they finally arrived in Fargo and rode out to the ranch, they found James had planned a party. The whole family was there, along with neighbors and friends, everyone gathering to celebrate their parents' anniversary. As the sun set and music played, Owen pulled Beatrice into a dance. They moved together easily, in perfect sync after so many years. "Happy?" Owen asked. "Incredibly," Beatrice replied. "How could I be anything else?" They danced as their children and grandchildren watched, a testament to enduring love, to the power of choosing each other every single day. The fire Owen had built that first terrible night had never gone out. Instead, it had grown, warming not just a house but an entire family, an entire life. As they grew older, Owen and Beatrice began to slow down, letting the younger generation take on more responsibility. But they never stopped working entirely, never stopped contributing. Owen consulted on major ranch decisions, his experience invaluable. Beatrice continued to design, her sketches still in high demand. But mostly, they enjoyed the fruits of their labor, the family and home they had built together. On a crisp October morning in 1905, Beatrice woke to find snow falling, the first of the season. She lay in bed, watching the flakes drift past the window, and thought about that other snowstorm so many years ago. She was 62 now, her hair silver, her hands marked by age and work. Owen, lying beside her, was 67, his dark hair gone gray, his face lined but still handsome. "What are you thinking about?" Owen asked, his voice rough with sleep. "The storm," Beatrice said. "The one that brought me here." Owen rolled over, pulling her close. "Best storm of my life." "Mine too." Beatrice kissed him, still finding joy in this simple intimacy. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if I had not found your barn, if I had gone a different direction in the storm?" "No," Owen said firmly, "because that is not what happened. You found your way to me and I found you. That was fate, Beatrice. That was meant to be." "You really believe that?" "With all my heart. We were meant to find each other, meant to build this life together. Everything that came before was just bringing us to that moment." They rose and dressed, moving through their morning routine with the ease of long practice. Downstairs, they found James already at the table with his own children, 3 rowdy boys who adored their grandparents. "Morning, Ma, Pa," James said. "Saw the snow. Winter came early this year." "Just like the year I met your mother," Owen said, ruffling his grandson's hair as the boy ran past. "Storm came down hard and fast, changed everything." "Tell us the story again, Grandma," the youngest grandson begged. "About how you almost died and Grandpa saved you." Beatrice settled into her chair, accepting a cup of coffee from James. "Well," she began, "it was the winter of 1882, and I was on a stagecoach heading to Helena to help my aunt open a dress shop. But a terrible blizzard struck, and the coach overturned. I got separated from the others and wandered through the snow, certain I was going to die. Then, just when I thought I could not go another step, I found a barn." She told the story as she had many times before, watching her grandson's eyes widen at the exciting parts, seeing Owen smile at the memories. It was their story, the foundation of everything they had built, and it bore repeating, passing down to the next generation and the one after that. That evening, after dinner and chores were done, Owen and Beatrice walked out to the ridge where they had often gone over the years. The snow had stopped, and stars were appearing in the darkening sky. The ranch spread out below them, lights glowing in windows, smoke rising from chimneys. "Look at what we made," Owen said, his arm around Beatrice's shoulders. "All of this from one chance meeting in a storm." "Not chance," Beatrice corrected gently. "You said it yourself, fate, destiny, whatever you want to call it, we were meant to find each other." "Yes, we were." Owen turned her to face him, his hands cupping her face with the same tenderness he had shown the first time he kissed her. "I love you, Beatrice Sadler. I have loved you from the moment I found you in that barn, and I will love you until my last breath and beyond." "And I love you," Beatrice said, her voice thick with emotion. "You saved my life that night, Owen, but you did more than that. You gave me a reason to live, a purpose, a home. You gave me everything." They kissed as snow began to fall again, gentle flakes drifting down around them. Below, in the warm house, their family gathered, 3 generations bound by love and blood. The ranch stretched out in all directions, a living testament to hard work and dedication. And at the center of it all stood Owen and Beatrice, still choosing each other after all these years. The years continued their march, bringing both joy and sorrow. Clara passed away peacefully in her sleep at the age of 82, leaving her share of the dress shop to Margaret, who continued to build on the legacy. Thomas, one of the original ranch hands, died in a riding accident, a loss that hit Owen hard. But there were good times too, more grandchildren born, successful harvests, expanding herds. Owen's health began to decline in his early 70s, his joints aching, his energy fading. But his mind remained sharp, and his love for Beatrice never wavered. On good days, they still walked to the ridge together. On bad days, Beatrice would sit with him by the fire, both of them content in silence, hands clasped. One spring morning, when Owen was 75 and Beatrice 70, Owen woke feeling unusually energetic. He insisted on helping with morning chores, and after breakfast, he asked Beatrice to ride out with him to check on the far pastures. James tried to dissuade him, worried about his father overexerting himself, but Owen was determined. "I want to see my land," he said firmly. "I want to ride it with my wife by my side like we have done 1,000 times before. Let an old man have his way." So they rode out, just the two of them, moving slowly across land they knew better than their own faces. They stopped for lunch by a creek, sitting in the grass and eating sandwiches Beatrice had packed. The sun was warm, the creek babbling peacefully, wildflowers blooming everywhere. "This is a good life," Owen said, looking around. "The best life a man could ask for." "Yes, it is," Beatrice agreed. "When I am gone," Owen began, but Beatrice cut him off. "Do not talk like that. We have to talk about it sometime, love. I am 75 years old. I have lived a long, full life. But when my time comes, I want you to know that I have no regrets. Every moment with you has been a gift. Every day we had together was exactly what I needed." Tears spilled down Beatrice's cheeks. "You are not allowed to leave me. I forbid it." Owen laughed, pulling her close. "I will stay as long as I can, but when I do go, I want you to be happy. Keep designing, keep living, keep filling this house with laughter and love. Do not mourn me too long, just remember me and smile." "I could never stop mourning you," Beatrice said. "You are half my soul, Owen. How do I go on without half my soul? You are stronger than you know. You always have been. You survived that storm. You built a business from nothing. You raised 3 incredible children and helped build a ranch that will last generations. You will survive losing me too, though I hope you do not have to for a long time yet." They sat by the creek until the shadows grew long, holding each other, making promises and sharing memories. Then they rode home slowly, savoring every moment together. Owen lived another 3 years, 3 precious years of watching grandchildren grow, of quiet evenings by the fire, of love deepening even as bodies failed. When he finally passed, peacefully in his sleep with Beatrice holding his hand, she felt as though part of herself died too. The funeral was huge, the church in Fargo overflowing with people whose lives Owen had touched. James gave the eulogy, speaking of his father's integrity, his work ethic, his devotion to family. Margaret sang a hymn, her voice breaking with emotion. Daniel read from Scripture. And Beatrice sat in the front pew, surrounded by her children and grandchildren, grieving but also grateful, grateful for the years they had together, for the love they shared, for the life they built. Owen had given her so much, more than she could ever quantify or repay. And true to his wishes, she determined to honor his memory by continuing to live fully. The first year without Owen was brutally hard. Beatrice found herself reaching for him in the night, forgetting for a moment that he was gone. She would think of something to tell him, then remember with a fresh wave of grief that she could not. The house felt too empty, too quiet, despite being full of family. But slowly, the sharp edges of grief softened. Beatrice still missed Owen every day, but the pain became bearable. She threw herself into her work, designing more actively than she had in years. She spent time with her grandchildren, teaching them to sew and telling them stories about their grandfather. And she kept the ranch running, honoring Owen's legacy by maintaining what he had built. On the 1-year anniversary of Owen's death, Beatrice rode out to the ridge alone. She stood looking over the valley, remembering all the times she and Owen had stood there together. "I miss you," she said aloud, not caring if anyone heard. "Every day I miss you, but I am doing what you asked. I am living, I am finding joy. The grandchildren are beautiful and strong. James is doing an amazing job with the ranch. Margaret's dress shop is thriving. Daniel just made partner at his firm. They are all living good lives, Owen. You would be so proud." The wind picked up, rustling through the grass, and Beatrice chose to believe it was Owen's answer, his way of telling her he was proud, that he was still with her in the ways that mattered. She lived another 12 years after Owen's death, years filled with more grandchildren, great-grandchildren, continued success of the family businesses. She finally put down her needle at 81, her hands too arthritic to sew anymore. But she remained sharp and engaged, interested in the world around her. On a cold December morning, as snow fell gently outside, Beatrice died peacefully in her sleep in the same bed where she had spent so many years with Owen. She was 82 years old, and she had lived a life beyond anything she could have imagined as that terrified young woman stumbling through a blizzard 55 years earlier. At her funeral, her children and grandchildren spoke of her strength, her creativity, her love. They told the story of the storm, of Owen finding her in the barn, of how a near tragedy had become the beginning of something beautiful. They celebrated a life well lived, a love story for the ages. James took over the ranch completely, running it with the same care his father had shown. Margaret continued the dress shop, eventually passing it to her own daughter. Daniel's children became lawyers and teachers, spreading the family across Montana and beyond. The Saddler name became synonymous with integrity and hard work, a legacy built on the foundation Owen and Beatrice had laid. Years turned into decades, and the story of Owen and Beatrice became family legend. Great-great-grandchildren heard the tale of the storm, of the cowboy who built a fire and the seamstress who built a home. The ranch still stood, though much expanded and modernized. The dress shop still operated in Helena, though under different management. And through it all, The love story endured, passed down through generations as an example of what true partnership could be. On a winter day much like the one when Beatrice first stumbled into Owen's barn, a young couple stood on the ridge overlooking the ranch. They were newly married, the latest generation of Saddlers, preparing to take over the family business. "You think it really happened like they say?" the young woman asked. "That she was lost in a storm and he found her and they fell in love in just days," her husband smiled, pulling her close. "I think when you meet the right person, time does not matter. Days or years, true love knows itself." Below them, the ranch spread out in the valley, lights glowing warmly against the gathering dusk. Smoke rose from chimneys, and cattle dotted the fields. Over a century had passed since Owen Saddler built a fire to save a stranger's life, since Beatrice Lawson built a home from that warmth. But their legacy lived on, in the land, in the family, in the story of a love that had weathered every storm and emerged stronger. The young couple stood on the ridge as snow began to fall, and in that moment, they felt the presence of all who had come before, all who had stood in this spot and looked out over this valley and known they were home. The fire Owen built that long ago winter night had never truly gone out. It burned still in the hearts of every Saddler, warming and guiding, a beacon of love and hope passed down through the generations. And that, truly, was the end of the story and the beginning of forever.